In example 3, we're going to fill out the chart. It says find the following from the function y equals 3x squared plus 30x plus 72. We want to find the vertex, the x-intercepts, and the y-intercept. So given our function, the first thing to do, we can find the vertex. To find the vertex, we need to start by finding the x-coordinate of the vertex using our formula that x is equal to the opposite of b over 2a. So in this case, our b value is 30. It's the number in front of x. And if we want the opposite of it, we want negative 30. Divided by 2 times our a value, and our a value here is 3. So we'll take 2 times 3. So we basically have negative 30 divided by 6, which is negative 5. And if negative 5 is our x-coordinate, to find the y-coordinate, we are just plugging that negative 5 into our function for both of the x's that are there. And we get 3 times negative 5, remember that needs to be in parentheses, and we're squaring that, plus 30 times negative 5 plus 72. You can plug that all in your calculator at one time, and you should see that you get negative 3. Which means our vertex is the point negative 5, comma, negative 3. We got negative 5 for the x-coordinate, which goes there, and negative 3 for the y-coordinate, which would go second. So here's our vertex. Next up, we want to find the x-intercepts. Well, the x-intercepts, your zeros and your solutions, are all the same thing. You find them the same way. So this, all you're going to do is you're going to set your function equal to 0. So we're going to replace y with 0 because our x-intercepts are when y is equal to 0, same as what we did with linear functions. So we can say 0 equals 3x squared plus 30x plus 72. And we can solve this in two ways. We can look to see if we can factor it, or you can use your quadratic formula. Remember, not everything can be factored, so some of these you will not be able to use factoring in order to solve them. Some of them you will. If you prefer just to go to the quadratic formula, you can do that too. I'm just going to go ahead and do the quadratic formula since it works for everything. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find my discriminant. And my discriminant is going to be b squared, so 30 squared, minus 4 times a times c. And I get my discriminant to equal 36, which I should recognize as a perfect square, telling me that I'm going to get some nice answers for my x-intercepts. And I get x equal to the opposite of b, so negative 30, plus or minus the square root of 36 divided by 2 times a. So basically I'm going to take negative 30 plus or minus 6 divided by 6, and I should get two answers. If I add it together, I get negative 4, and if I subtract, I get negative 6. And I would pause this for a second and make sure when you plug it in, you're getting the same answers. Check yourself to make sure you're plugging everything in correctly. So I have two x-intercepts. One x-intercept at negative 4, and one x-intercept is at negative 6. And the last thing I want to find is my y-intercept. Well, if I'm finding a y-intercept, I'm going to do the same thing I did in the first semester, and that's going to be to set x equal to 0. Anytime you find a y-intercept, it doesn't matter what function you're dealing with, you're always going to put 0 in for x. So in my function, I have y equals, and where both of these x's are, I'm going to replace those with zeros. So 3 times 0 squared plus 30 times 0 plus 72. And if I plug that into my calculator, which you may or may not have to, you will get y equal to 72. And that's my y-intercept. Now, the reason I said you don't quite need a calculator is anything times 0 is just 0. So these first two terms, since you're multiplying by 0, are just 0. Which means your y-intercept, once it's in this form, will always end up being that constant value that you have, which is 72. Next, I would like you to go ahead and do the try this. A couple things though. With the try this, I will give you a little hint that your vertex does end up being fractions. You can use fractions or decimals, either one, but don't be alarmed if you see those fractions coming out. And your x-intercepts will not come out as exact numbers like we did in ours, which means just go ahead and use that decimal approximation. Okay, so go ahead and pause it, unpause it when you're ready to check your answer. If you did the vertex correctly, you should have gotten 1/4, comma, negative 29 over 4. And if you did it as a decimal, that's fine too. You would have yours at 0.25, comma, negative 7.25. So either one of those is fine. Your x-intercepts, you should have approximated those to be 1.60 and negative 1.10. And the y-intercept was negative 7. Let me know if you have questions.